The International Space Station recently released footage that caught researchers off guard. It shows a dark object drifting near Earth with unusual clarity and controlled movement. It doesn't tumble like space debris. It doesn't match the behavior of known satellites.
Washington, February 10th. An unidentified silent satellite has been discovered circling the Earth in a near-polar orbit by United States tracking stations. The Defense Department said today the identity and origin of the mystery satellite, which has been dubbed the Dark Satellite, are not known, despite nearly 2 weeks of tracking. The satellite was first spotted over Florida, an unsuspected, unpredicted bright satellite. Stations around the world have been asked to help track it.
For decades, reports of a strange object nicknamed the Black Knight surfaced and disappeared without answers. This video didn't solve the mystery. It made it harder to ignore. Black Knight satellite.
And you said you saw literally hundreds of unidentifiable flying objects.
Yes, they were flying quite high. How high we couldn't tell because we couldn't get anywhere near their altitude. But they were either very large craft way up or smaller craft still well above what we could get to.
The Black Knight is one of the most intriguing claims, which states that this mysterious object has been orbiting Earth long before humanity ever launched its first artificial satellite. Narratives often bring us back to 1899, when inventor Nikola Tesla was conducting groundbreaking experiments with electricity and wireless transmission at his Colorado Springs laboratory. Tesla's equipment picked up repeating radio pulses that he thought could not be explained by Earth-bound phenomena. He described these signals as artificial and rhythmic, as they had a mysterious quality that made him suspect they were definitely from space. Tesla even believed that the coded nature of the pulses, which could even be described in numerical patterns, indicated communication from another world out of our planet. Later in the 1920s, the idea of the Black Knight satellite and alien radio contact became more widely known because of something very confusing, which we call long-delayed echoes. In 1927, Norwegian engineer Jørgen Hals found that some radio transmissions he sent were echoed back seconds after the original broadcast, sometimes up to 15 seconds, and he couldn't explain why. Normal radio echoes occur fractions of a second after transmission, caused by predictable atmospheric reflections. But LDEs are hard to explain conventionally after the scientists examined them, allowing scientists and theorists to interpret them as possible retransmission from an object beyond our atmosphere. Experts of the Black Knight theory connect these two phenomena together, suggesting that a non-human satellite has been orbiting the planet for well over a century, intercepting and reflecting radio signals back to Earth. Mainstream science offers explanations for both Tesla's early signals as possibly terrestrial noise or natural cosmic sources, and the LDEs as possibly ionospheric or plasma reflections. But these unexplained anomalies have been fueling speculation that something strange is watching us from above long before Sputnik 1. But about 3 decades after the weird signals of Black Knight satellite, newspaper reports revealed some shocking pieces of evidence that eyewitnesses spotted. 1950s newspaper reports. In the 1950s, long before humanity's achievements in spaceflight became commonplace, a series of newspaper reports and radar observations revealed reports about unknown objects that might already be circling Earth, the Black Knight satellite. These reports say that decades before Sputnik 1 was launched in 1957, there was something else circulating our planet. In May 1954, newspapers such as the San Francisco Examiner and the St. Pridort E. Louis Dispatch ran sensational headlines reporting that U.S. scientists had detected one or two artificial satellites orbiting Earth at altitudes of roughly 400 and 600 miles. Proponents of the Black Knight theory say that it was this ancient satellite circling the Earth. These claims were attributed to the retired U.S. Marine Corps aviator Donald E. Kehoe, who had become prominent in UFO research, and claimed Pentagon sources had informed him that they also detected these satellites. To make it even more mysterious, radar systems had picked up these satellites at a time when no nation had yet launched anything into orbit, leading to widespread fascination and confusion in both scientific circles and the general public. Later in the decade, in 1960, a New York Times article detailed sightings of a mysterious dark, silent satellite tracked by U.S. Navy radar in a near-polar orbit. That means it passed over Earth's poles rather than following the more common east-to-west equatorial path that early spacecraft used. This orbit was very important because, at the time, neither the United States nor the Soviet Union had the capability to place satellites into polar orbits, and polar trajectories would give a satellite the capability to observe nearly every point on the planet's surface. Even the military was worried about these radar detections, fearing that the object might be a secret Soviet spy satellite or worse, an extraterrestrial craft. But there are some who are skeptical of these early sightings and say that the Black Knight satellite is just a legend. Analysis has tied the dark satellite to remnants of the U.S. Discoverer reconnaissance program, with some suggesting that the object seen by radar was debris from an errant Discoverer capsule. When scientists thought that the trail of evidence explaining the Black Knight satellite had run cold, astronauts began going to space, and then they discovered even stranger objects that pointed towards an extraterrestrial satellite. Astronaut Gordon Cooper mission. The arrows pointing to the existence of the Black Knight satellite in space became bigger when astronaut Gordon Cooper went on the 1963 Mercury Atlas 9 mission. Although this mission was a major technical achievement, it became a curious and controversial moment in UFO history. On May 15, 1963, during his 22-orbit flight around Earth, Cooper reported to a tracking station in Moochea, near Perth, Australia, that he saw something unusual ahead of his capsule. It was a glowing greenish object that seemed to move in an unexpected direction, the direct opposite of normal man-made satellites. This object was seen visually by Cooper, but if you think that's not enough to prove this, it was also confirmed on radar by the ground personnel watching the mission. These details were widely spread in UFO circles and were even reported by broadcasters covering the flight. But then, it seemed like the government was about to cover this up. Journalists were forbidden from asking Cooper about the sighting after he landed on Earth, and the news slowly disappeared from the media. This sighting was believable because Cooper was widely known as a disciplined and experienced pilot, and someone who would never exaggerate about something so important. He always advocated for transparency about unexplained aerial phenomena and testified before international forums about the UFO. When researchers and historians look into the official mission records, including NASA transcripts and Cooper's copies of communications, there's no evidence that he ever made a formal UFO report while in orbit. The sighting doesn't even appear in NASA's mission transcripts, but NASA continues to cover it up, saying that this was probably natural phenomena, like an auroral activity or reflections within the spacecraft window. They also guess that it could be illuminated debris that Cooper misidentified during the mission. About a decade after Cooper made this report, a leading researcher looked into the LDE data and revealed that he had a map pointing to the origin of the Black Knight.
Our home is Epsilon Wotus, which is a double star. We live on the sixth planet of 7, coming from the Sun, which is the larger of the two. Our sixth planet has 1 moon. Our fourth planet has 3. Our Our first and third planets each have one. Our probe is in the position of Arcturus, known in our maps.
In 1973, Scottish researcher and writer Duncan Lunan sparked one of the most enduring and curious chapters of the Black Knight satellite legend. He published an article in Spaceflight, the journal of the British Interplanetary Society. At first, Luncan wasn't investigating or trying to prove that an ancient alien satellite existed. Instead, he was actually investing in something that had puzzled radio experimenters for many decades. That was the long-delayed echoes first observed in the late 1920s, where radio transmissions returned to their sender several seconds later than expected, far beyond what normal reflections could explain. Lunan took the recorded LDS timing data and plotted it in a novel way. Instead of dismissing the variations as noise, he arranged the delay times and sequence order on graph axes, hoping that a pattern might emerge. To his shock, the resulting constellation-like diagram seemed to resemble the familiar pattern of Bootes, a northern constellation. Strikingly, one star, Epsilon Bootes, appeared in a position that was inconsistent with its current location. When Lunan accounted for axial precession, which is the slow wobble of Earth's rotation that alters the apparent positions of stars over millennia, he saw that the constellation matched how it would have looked about 13,000 years ago. This temporary alignment caused him to suggest an interesting theory. He states that the echoes might be extraterrestrial, but also extremely ancient, after being present near Earth since prehistoric times. Lunan even interpreted the plotted data as a sort of coded message, detailing a symbolic map of a star system, and said that it might be an alien probe that came from Epsilon Bootes. Lunan's article captured public imagination, and this was widely reported in the press, but he later said that the key assumptions in his report were flawed. He eventually withdrew some parts of his theory because of the data inaccuracies and admitted that the method that produced the star map was not as robust as he first thought. Over time, he started to distance himself from any associations with the Black Knight narrative, clarifying that his speculation was an intellectual exercise grounded in fringe data, not evidence of a centuries-old satellite watching Earth. Just when it seemed like there was no strong evidence, in 1998, the ISS released the clearest photo of a UFO. And this might just be good evidence of the Black Knight. 1998 photo. In December 1998, during Space Shuttle Endeavour's STS-88 mission, which is the first shuttle flight to begin assembling the International Space Station, astronauts captured a series of striking images that later became known as strong evidence of the mysterious Black Knight satellite. The object in question appears in NASA photo STS-088-7224-66 as a dark, irregular shape drifting above Earth's blue curve, and its odd silhouette, devoid of obvious spacecraft structures like solar panels, made it instantly compelling to those who have been investigating Black Knight. Conspiracy theorists instantly jumped on this idea that this was not ordinary space debris, but rather, it was an ancient alien probe silently observing humanity from orbit. Even worse, it seemed like NASA had tried to suppress or remove the images from public access, so it seemed like we were looking at an official cover-up. But NASA and spaceflight experts provided a much more grounded explanation. According to former NASA engineer James Oberg and other mission personnel, what the images actually show is a thermal insulation blanket that was accidentally lost during an extravehicular activity while astronauts were installing protective covers on ISS hardware. During spacewalks, astronauts use these flexible, reflective blankets to shield sensitive components from extreme temperature swings. One such blanket detached from its tether and began to drift, eventually being photographed against the backdrop of Earth. Alternative theories. When exploring alternative theories about the Black Knight satellite, They move far beyond conventional space science into realms that blend mythology, speculative archaeology, and imaginative storytelling. At the heart of these ideas is the belief that this mysterious orbiter is not merely misidentified debris or a lost space blanket, but something far more profound. They suspect that it's a relic of an advanced past, or even a cosmic ark sent to safeguard life or knowledge. The satellite's unusual orbit and supposed ancient radio echoes suggest it is not a product of 20th century technology, but a much older construct, possibly predating recorded history itself. This perspective draws on broader ancient astronaut hypotheses, which posit that advanced civilizations, whether human or extraterrestrial, interacted with Earth millennia ago and may have left behind sophisticated artifacts in orbit. Such theories suggest the satellite could be a monitoring device, a seed of life, or a repository of genetic or cultural memory meant to endure catastrophic events on Earth. Some enthusiasts extend this speculation even further, saying that the Black Knight functions as a guardian or information beacon, overseeing humanity's development and waiting for a specific level of technological maturity before making its presence known. Under this lens, the object has become symbolic. It's a message in space, much like the Voyager Golden Record, a silent handshake from the distant past. This interpretation leans into the human fascination with origins and destiny, suggesting the satellite could be a last remnant of a forgotten civilization or even a deliberate creation from beyond our solar system. Another variant of these alternative theories focuses on the idea of the Black Knight as a cosmic ark carrying valuable biological information, perhaps even DNA. This is a concept not unlike the panspermia hypothesis explored in fringe scientific thought. In this view, ancient builders might have launched an orbital repository of life's building blocks to withstand planetary disasters, ensuring continuity long after a civilization's physical form has vanished. While mainstream science dismisses these ideas due to a lack of empirical evidence, they persist in pop culture and on fringe websites because they offer a rich narrative about humanity's place in the cosmos. Still, despite the theories and evidence, there would always be experts who debunk the claims of Black Knight and the possibility that it exists. Debunking earlier claims. Experts have debunked the Black Knight satellite legend, starting with Nikola Tesla's 1899 radio experiments. Tesla indeed reported strange, repeating radio pulses while experimenting with his Colorado Springs transmitter, and he speculated they might be coming from intelligent sources beyond Earth. But scientists today believe these early signals were very likely natural cosmic emissions, not alien communication. The first confirmed non-Earth radio sources weren't identified until the 1930s, and pulsars were only discovered in 1967 to 68. This explains why those early signals might have sounded artificial to Tesla, but were not evidence of an alien satellite like the Black Knight. After this happened, there were the long-delayed echoes discovered by amateur radio operators such as Jorgen Hals. These radio transmissions kept returning to their senders seconds after the original signal. This phenomenon captured the imagination of conspiracy theorists, who suggested that something in orbit must be catching and rebroadcasting the signals. However, the scientific community does not regard LDEs as definitive evidence of extraterrestrial hardware. Although the underlying cause of LDEs has not been fully resolved, multiple natural explanations have been proposed, including propagation through ionospheric or magnetospheric ducts, multiple global reflections, and interactions with plasma clouds influenced by solar activity. Even attempts to tie LDEs or Tesla's early pulses into coherent messages or star maps, such as Duncan Lunan's 1973 analysis, have been withdrawn or heavily critiqued by researchers themselves. Lunan later acknowledged methodological problems with his interpretations, undermining the idea that LDEs carry intentionally encoded messages from a long-present probe. Modern science explains Tesla's mysterious signals, but NASA has also given an official explanation about this, although many say it's a cover-up. NASA's official explanation. Since ISS released the clearest video of a UFO ever taken, NASA came up with its own explanation for what was there. The object captured against the blue curve of the planet, according to NASA, isn't an alien probe or ancient sentinel, but rather a thermal insulation blanket accidentally lost during a routine spacewalk. During STS-88, astronauts were installing insulating covers, which are designed to protect hardware from extreme temperature swings on the newly delivered International Space Station modules. At one point, Commander Robert Cabana radioed astronaut Jerry Ross, saying, "Jerry, one of the thermal covers got away from you," as the cover slipped its tether and began drifting in orbit. NASA's photo catalogs and mission logs also include this explanation. The object was logged at space debris and tracked briefly before orbital drag caused it to decay and burn up in Earth's atmosphere days later. Former NASA engineer and space historian James Oberg, who worked on the STS-88 mission's trajectory design, has repeatedly explained that the object's irregular appearance and tumbling motion are entirely consistent with a lightweight, flexible blanket tumbling in microgravity, especially when one side is reflective and the other appears dark in certain lighting. But from the NASA website changes to broken image links, it seems like there's evidence of a cover-up or suppression. The disappearance and reappearance of online images prove that there's something more secretive going on. Meanwhile, the ISS has released another shocking video, this time revealing UFOs that looked like three triangles. 3 triangle UFOs. In 2019, a short but striking piece of footage recorded from the International Space Station's viewport ignited intense debate across UFO research communities. The video, originally part of a routine ISS livestream, appears to show 3 unidentified oranges flying past the station in close succession. At first glance, they look like small points of light, but when analysts slowed the footage and zoomed in, the objects revealed far more puzzling characteristics. Rather than tumbling randomly like space debris, each object seemed to maintain consistent orientation and trajectory, moving smoothly across the frame as if it was being controlled by a higher life force. What immediately caught attention was the shape. Enhanced frames suggest that the objects were triangular, a form long related to UFO sightings reported by pilots and civilians alike. Even more unusual, the objects seemed to be flying backward. The wider edge was facing the direction of travel, rather than tapering behind them like a normal aircraft. This isn't expected from any aerodynamic or orbital behavior, especially in the vacuum of space where debris usually spins unpredictably. The most compelling detail, according to analysts, was the formation. The 3 objects traveled in a near-perfect straight line, one after the other, at similar speeds and spacing. Experts argued that the mathematical probability of 3 unrelated pieces of debris randomly passing the ISS in such a precise formation is extremely low. Space junk usually disperses chaotically, influenced by gravity gradients, drag, and collisions. Coordinated movement suggests intent, not chance. Adding to the mystery, one of the objects appears to briefly change shape, morphing into what resembles a butterfly-like configuration before stabilizing again. This moment led researchers to connect the footage with earlier reports of so-called butterfly UFOs, sightings in which craft reportedly altered shape mid-flight, something far beyond current human technology. Skeptics argue the objects could be ice particles, lens artifacts, or reflective debris illuminated by the sun. Yet supporters counter that the controlled motion, formation flying, and apparent shape changes set this footage apart from typical ISS anomalies. Whatever it is, there's one basic idea. Astronauts may be capturing far more than Earth and stars on camera, and sending the photos and videos secretly back home. Ever since ISS released the clearest videos of UFOs ever taken, experts have been investigating what they really see out there. Do you think astronauts secretly send proof of extraterrestrial photos to Earth? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. So, thanks for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.